A GM board member just went on TV and raved about Tesla. He is a former Tesla executive, and yet he's not criticizing Tesla despite being a GM board member. How come? Well, let's dive in and see.
What do you make of this whole idea of these shareholders? And we've had a bunch of them even come on the program now. Yeah. Who signed this letter saying, look, you're doing too much, Elon. It's just too much. What do you think of that?
He's talking about this letter signed by 17 Tesla stock investors who hold over $1.5 billion worth of Tesla stock. And they want to remove directors that are closely tied to Elon Musk. For example, obviously Elon's brother. And they want to have Elon no longer spend any time at Twitter really, but make no mistake, that is actually a political request. At least to a certain extent, it certainly is. Because that campaign is led by one of the most left-leaning politicians in New York City, actually. They are shareholders, though.
I don't think he's all that distracted away from the business. Like on the earnings call, he was answering questions at a really deep level, like on how the C++ neural nets work.
Right.
Like he's involved, and he has always had a lot going on, but he is incredible at managing his schedule and staying involved on the absolutely key topics.
For Tesla to more than 10x from here, I believe the most important thing that Tesla can work on is full self-driving, and Elon is obviously very focused on that. I don't think he's really spending less time on full self-driving specifically, although he may be spending less time on other things at Tesla. It does feel a little bit like breaking news. Then Elon tweets something like this: I walked the production line at Tesla Giga Texas today. Elon tweeted that he walked the Cybertruck production line a few weeks after that. Ideally, he would tweet tweets like that every single day, but that's not really realistic.
And you see, like they are still delivering more cars than they've ever delivered. I think anybody in the car business would love a 36 comp on a quarter. And he's got a lot of margin to play with.
By the way, I don't disagree with you. What I can't figure out is, let's say he was paying more attention. What would the result be?
Yeah, what would you do about the general economic environment? Exactly.
Even though he was a Tesla executive before, he has gone to the dark side and joined the board of GM, because it electrified the whole entire industry, and it led and it mattered. He is still praising and defending Elon and Tesla. And it's really not difficult to take a jab at Elon right here. I mean, there are some valid points here that you could certainly make, but he's not doing that. He's actually defending Elon. Respect for that. I mean, I don't think any Tesla shareholders would be upset if he said, it would be great if Elon could spend more time at Tesla. I don't think anyone would say no to that. Of course, it would mean Elon would have to spend less time at Twitter, and some people would not be happy with that. But as a Tesla stock holder, would you be less happy if Elon actually spent more time at Tesla? This just goes to show you how much respect a former Tesla executive has for Elon Musk, even after this guy went ahead and joined the competition.
And because they've got a lot of margin, they're using that as a weapon. Even though they cut prices 6 times this year, they still in the first quarter delivered more margin than anybody else in the industry.
Some Tesla stock short sellers or bears will listen to that statement and say, oh, this is a false statement, because if you look at the margins of other automakers, actually Tesla's margins are decent, of course, but there are some that are doing just as well or even better. For example, look at Mercedes. It appears to be doing better over here, but it is important to remember that only Tesla's vehicles are 100% battery electric vehicles, and none of them are making any profits from purely battery electric vehicles. It is also crucial to compare the latest data with the latest data instead of taking Tesla's latest data and then comparing that data to other people's data from before, because there's seasonality and the economy shifts also. For example, if you look at BYD, which supposedly is crushing Tesla so badly, well, they just posted their net profits, and you can see Q1 right here, and that is about half of their profits of just the quarter before Q1. Their revenue is also down substantially, so it's not like they had a lot more revenue also and it's just a temporary bump because maybe once they scale, they can have much higher margins. No, their revenue declined too. Year over year, though, they are doing very well. Just like Tesla is doing great year over year. And you could say, oh, but the BYD only sells vehicles in China, and China in the first quarter of a year always is not, it's hard to sell cars in Q1. You have a Chinese New Year, and it's just a slow quarter always. Okay. Then you have to explain to me how come Tesla had a record quarter in China. Q1 in China for Tesla was a lot better in terms of volume, in terms of deliveries than Q4. How did that happen? BYD cut prices too, by the way. The consumers just said, you know what? We would rather buy a Tesla than a BYD vehicle.
Are you a believer, though, there is this other issue, which is, he's made a lot of promises to not just the shareholders, but frankly, the customers who bought the vehicles thinking that they're getting autonomous driving, full self-drive, all sorts of different component parts of the product that have not come to fruition. I say that somewhat politely because I do know some owners of these cars that are genuinely upset because they think they were sold a bill of goods.
It would be pretty easy for him to agree to some degree with that and not defend Elon. Let's see if he still defends Elon.
Yeah, I think he is good at delivering eventually on promises, but not on time on his promises. And that's got to be frustrating for customers.
It was really easy for him to take a jab at Elon Musk here and say, a few years ago, Elon promised that FSD is going to be sold, and yet it wasn't. And then he promised that it would be still every single year after that. No, he just said, look, Elon is not often good with timing, but he always delivers, basically. That man seriously has a lot of respect for Elon Musk. And I think we'll look back at this statement 10 years from now and we'll be like, yeah, well, Elon was late, but he's often late. And yet he always delivers eventually. When you're dealing with a piece of new technology, you will always have hurdles and struggles and delays. It's just a part of it.
And I think now you see competition coming both on the EV side and on the autonomous vehicle side.
Right.
And I think they're feeling that competition for sure.
If that statement sounds a bit confusing, it's because he is a member of the GM board. There is certainly decent competition in China, but outside of China, not really very serious competition. Eventually it will come, but it may take a very, 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 very long time. Check this out. Renault seeks software architecture on par with Tesla by 2026. How do you know where Tesla is going to be in 2026? You can't really say that. So you will just be doing in 2026 or trying to do in 2026 what Tesla has been doing until now. That's how a lot of these automakers are going to be left behind for many years.
But one of the things you heard this year was he said, look, by the end of this year, I think we're going to have full autonomous driving, and that's where we're going to make it up on the margin, right?
Yes.
He thinks that he's saying, look, we'll take a lower margin today because I'm going to be able to really get margin later.
Right.
And I think there's some investors, at minimum, who are saying, are you really going to be able to get margin later? Because A, there's all of these other car companies that are doing EVs that are going to try to take your margin, and B, is this full self-driving thing, robo-taxis, and all the ways you think you're capturing this margin in the future, is that a realistic future?
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking you to believe as an investor is, can you make this up in the future with software revenues and other revenues that are going to come in off the car? That's what you're being asked to believe as an investor.
And I'm asking you where you would land on that.
He did try to dodge that question, probably because the answer would not be exactly very positive. Let's see what he says now.
I think the market is kind of speaking on that. I think in the long term, this is a huge market. They're a market leader. They've got market-leading margins. And so as an investor, you're investing into a space that could be 10 times larger, literally in 5 years than it is today.
Remember, he is on GM's board of directors, and yet he's saying that Tesla is clearly the leader, that Tesla has the highest margins, even though GM does operate Cruise. He's not saying that, yeah, Cruise is ahead and Tesla has no hope. How come? I wonder. Why isn't he saying that? Perhaps it is because he has been an insider of Tesla, and now he's an insider of GM, and he has seen both from the inside, and now he realizes and clearly understands, yeah, there is no way GM is going to beat Tesla.
But as an automobile company or as this other thing? Because right now it's still, to capture this type of valuation,
Yes.
even this valuation, you have to believe it's something else.
That's right, because they're valued at 10x their competition. And
Right.
so you've got to believe that there's something else, and that competition is coming now with autonomous vehicles. Like,
Okay, but so you used to work with this guy, you know.
Yeah.
So is there something else?
there is a lot of capability to deliver margins off of that platform, those cars. But GM's got a very similar strategy and a very similar capability, and others do too.
Right.
So this space becomes more crowded
I have
for
one
sure.
question about not the distraction piece, but the ecosystem that is Elon, which is to say, one of the things you keep hearing about is, so he has Twitter. He's now talking about doing generative AI. He's got SpaceX. There is this sense that, and he owns Twitter outright as a private company, Tesla, a public company, SpaceX, private company, but lots of investors in there.
Yeah.
He does move these engineers around from place to place to place to place to help in specific moments. There was a period of time where we heard that a lot of Tesla engineers were showing up on the doorstep of Twitter to try to assess what's really happening. Folks at SpaceX, now in the whole generative AI situation, how that's, and he's got a lot of AI folks inside Tesla that he's going to want to use in other places. How should a shareholder feel about that? In the sort of normal context, there would be people who would say, no, that guy works for you over here. He does not work for you over here.
It drives, believe it or not, some massive breakthroughs. There are SpaceX metallurgy engineers, materials engineers who've really transformed the way the Model Y gets produced.
Right.
And so you get these big breakthroughs by moving that talent and context switching them. So yeah, I can understand one side of the story where investors are upset. The other side of the story that doesn't really get told is how much value they add back to Tesla as they come in and help.
That's right, and you heard that from a former Tesla insider, and I think he would say, hey, look, it is a problem, if it actually was a problem, but he's saying, well, the Model Y would not be where it is today if it wasn't for SpaceX engineers collaborating with Tesla engineers. And do you think also that possibly there are going to be similar things happening in the future? And also, how much understanding of metals was also shared between SpaceX when developing the Cybertruck? If we prevent Elon from moving engineers when needed or when necessary, we are really preventing important future developments from possibly happening. In the short term, everyone is unhappy, or many are unhappy that, oh, the engineers are being shared when we are taken away from Tesla, but when engineers actually come to Tesla from other Elon's companies, that is all fine. If you want to have it both ways, then we may not see these important improvements in the future happening because of collaboration between the companies. Because Elon would then be more hesitant to move engineers from one company to another. The latest Patreon video is, this is so crazy, it's actually bullish for me. The sign up link for Patreon is down below, and this is an important message to all Tesla stock investors, which explains why the Tesla board members are not buying more Tesla stock. My name is Matt Posius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.